And just to set the context, it's now pretty much understood that as a species we're living well beyond the means of our finite planet. The role of cities within this is actually huge. So cities cover about 2% of the land area of the Earth, but account for something like 60% of our energy use and 75% of our carbon emissions. So coupled with that, over half of humanity currently lives in cities. And by 2050, when it's projected that there'll be 9 billion people on the planet, over 3/4 of them will live in cities, so 7 billion people. Now, it'd be nice to think that we can start with a clean slate and design sustainable cities, and there is work going on. There are projects like Masdar where people are trying to build a sustainable city from scratch, but the reality is that most of those 7 billion people by 2050 that live in cities will be living in cities that already exist today. So we need to make our cities sustainable. So if we are to transition to a sustainable future, the battle is going to be won or lost in cities, and we're here to talk about how we can win that battle. Specifically on this panel, we're going to be looking at how businesses, governments and academia can work together to accelerate the change we need. So joining me for this discussion, we have Peter Madden and Sterling Hughes. Peter brings to the panel many years of experience in policy development and sustainability, having worked with the corporate sector, with government agencies and with NGOs. Until recently, he was CEO of Forum for the Future, a UK-based non-profit organisation that works with the private and public sector to drive progress towards a sustainable society. But Peter left fairly recently to join the fantastically named Catapult Future Cities, which I'm looking forward to hearing more about. As I understand it, Catapult Future Cities has been set up specifically to help UK businesses drive the innovation needed to create the integrated services that our future cities will demand. So welcome, Peter. Sterling Hughes is, I hope I get this right, Senior Director of Advanced Technologies. Yep. At Silver Spring Networks. To make any kind of distributed system smart requires a flexible and robust communications infrastructure. And this is what Silver Spring Networks provide. So what they've done is they've taken an open standard internet communications protocol, IPv6, and they've built a solution that enables you to layer a communications network across an entire city, which cities can then deploy smart services on top of. We just heard from Sustainia about things like intelligent lighting control systems, electric vehicle charging and so forth. They're just a couple of examples of the kinds of things you could layer on top of this technology. I think it's safe to say that Sterling is a little bit of a techie because, as I understand it, he both led the design and development of Silver Spring's technology platform. But he also represents the business side of what Silver Spring does. So welcome, Sterling. So we've got about 15 minutes. What I want to do is ask a few questions to get things kicked off, and then I'll be coming out to the audience for any questions that you have. But what I want to start with, Peter and Sterling, is the size of this opportunity. And we've heard from Joel and others already that this is a pretty obvious opportunity, right, to make our cities smart, to reduce our impacts as a society. But what puzzles me is we don't seem to be seeing the focus, particularly from large companies, on addressing this opportunity. And I wondered if you could, well, first, do you agree that that's the case, that this isn't happening at the speed and scale we need? And secondly, if so, what are the barriers to that?
Okay, well, I'll start perhaps. So, good morning, everybody. In setting up this Catapult Centre, Future Cities Catapult, which I shall be running, it's a €100 million centre based out of London to bring together cities, academics, businesses and innovators to tackle city problems. So we've been speaking to a lot of people about, there's this huge business opportunity, why isn't it happening? Why aren't we making business opportunities from it? And companies have told us that the single most important thing for them is that cities cannot take joined-up decisions. Okay? Cities are based in silos and they cannot take sensible, long-term, holistic decisions for the whole of their city. So that's their problem. And then we go to cities and they say, we can't prove the business case on this. We're hearing a lot about smart cities. Everyone says it's great, but the only people proving it to us and telling it to us are those very companies that then want to sell us services and lock us in for the next 10 years. So we have this kind of stalemate a little bit. So at the heart of my center that I'm setting up, there's going to be a big data facility, a lab, where cities, where companies, where innovators can come in and plug in all their data streams, visualize what happens, play games, prove the business case, and innovate. And we hope that by being a neutral space, that everybody can come in and test their business case, their innovations, where businesses can work with academics and with companies, we might unlock some of that change.
Okay, that sounds great, Peter. And is this is just specific to London, is that correct?
Well, the centre will be in London because it has to be somewhere, but our ambition is to work with companies, with cities from across the world. Excellent.
Okay, thank you. And Sterling, do you agree that things aren't happening at the speed and scale we need? And if so, what can Silver Spring do to help accelerate things?
Yeah, sure. So I think Silver Spring started in smart grid, which has actually gone to scale, and it's one of those markets that's really moved very quickly, and it moved that way because of energy efficiency and demand response. So there's any number of benefits that you can get by implementing a smart grid: improved operational efficiency, better services for consumers, but really what moved it was energy efficiency and utilities needing to control energy usage and more efficiently manage their infrastructure for energy. Our view is that the same applies to cities as well. So the first applications that you're going to deploy are going to be about energy efficiency and increased revenue as well as one that's pretty big for cities. So in our view, it's smart lighting, smart parking are those first applications that you're going to deploy. But what really made smart grid move and what made a lot of people excited about it was how do you develop layer applications on top of that?
Right.
And that's where I think something like the Catapult is absolutely essential, right? It's that improved service to the citizens that is actually going to make this visible and important to people to implement.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that Silver Spring's technology will enable those basic cost-saving services that cities could recoup their investment in fairly quickly, but then that would enable them to roll out new applications that they may not have even thought of yet?
Exactly. We think that's the key, is to find energy efficiency. Lighting as an example. I think it was previously mentioned, lighting's about 40% of a municipality's energy budget.
Yeah.
And by implementing smart lighting, you can reduce your energy usage by about 65% in a city. So that's fairly good savings just from energy usage. With LEDs and other technology like that, you can then reduce your operational savings by about 90%. In addition to that, you then get all of the benefits of rolling out a network across your city and providing a canopy for other applications. And then that allows software startups and innovative companies like Microsoft to come in and then develop services once they have a network out there for the city. So lighting, as an example, is one where it not only reduces your energy usage and provides you more efficient operations in your city, it also helps you reduce crime. And it's a tool that police can use in order to better light areas. And by combining applications and startups kind of software with our network, you can get increased consumer services out of something that fundamentally saves you money at the end of the day.
Okay.
And sorry, Jeff, and just to add one thing, I think that one of the other things that's often missing from this debate is the engagement and involvement of citizens and people who live in cities themselves. And a lot of the smart city debate and narrative, it's about clever people, and you clearly are one, but clever people kind of developing technologies, applying algorithms that are going to run our cities very effectively. And we kind of had that vision in the 1960s where clever architects and town planners social engineered our cities and made them smart. And there's a great quote I love from Plato from 2,500 years ago, and he says, our city is what it is because our citizens are what they are. And there's something about the need to engage people, communities and citizens in the development and deployment of these technologies, that will get ownership, that will get genuine innovations, and it won't just be about something that's done to cities, but something done by citizens for themselves in their cities.
So is it fair to say that the cities themselves, the infrastructure itself won't be smart, it will just be exposing information in a way that ordinary citizens can make smarter decisions about the things that they do?
Well, let me give you one example. I was talking to somebody yesterday here in Paris, and he said, 2 or 3 years ago, Paris put its data out there, opened its data like many other cities did. And what happened? Very little. And in some ways, what would you expect? You put a whole pile of data out there, unless citizens are enabled and have tools and facilities and training to use that data and to ask questions and to hold people to account, then it's not going to happen. So I think it's making sure that citizens have the capacity to join in and benefit from this as well. Otherwise, it will be something that's done to them, not with them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know the Barclays bikes, or Boris bikes in London, that are freely available for people to use. Fantastic idea, but I didn't start using them myself until an iPhone app came out that told me that when I got off the train, there was a bike available at a particular location. So that's a great example of the kind of thing that can be done. Right, we've got 7 minutes, 33 seconds left for our session. I'm conscious of the time. So what I want to do now is open it to questions from the floor to Peter and Sterling as to what we can really do to drive the integration of services for new cities and how we get businesses, academics and city-level governments working together more effectively. So any questions from the floor? Don't be shy, I know it's the first panel of the day. No? Okay, so
there's one over there.
We've got one over here?
A couple over there.
Okay.
Thank you. Luke Nicholson from Carbon Culture. Peter, I'm interested, because TSB obviously funded the catapult to some extent in order to achieve some outcomes. What are the strategic outcomes that the funding is looking for? How is that going to be delivered in the cities that you're looking at, but also as the efforts go global, how is that going to deliver?
Yeah. Well, I've got a big chunk of funding from the British government, and what they're interested in is the business opportunity. They kind of say, quite rightly, we're all going to be living in cities. We're seeing the biggest rural-urban migration in the history of humankind happening. So learning how to run those cities efficiently is a huge business opportunity that's also going to do good for people and quality of life and for sustainability. So they're interested in the business opportunities that I can develop in the UK, whether I can build a cluster of organisations, academic institutes, businesses, innovators in London working on smart cities that makes us a global centre for thinking and action on this. So I think it's the opportunity to do good for business and also to do good for the planet. They're the two things I'm going to be judging myself.
Question at the back there?
Animesh Pathak from INRIA Paris. Hello. Yes. My question, I think, ties very nicely to the last couple of words you said. This is Peter, but I think also in part to Sterling. We talk about sustainability. You just mentioned about what can be called environmental and economic sustainability. I do not hear much about social sustainability, as in why would people want to live in these cities? I have a very fancy house with solar panel. I don't have any friends. What do I do there? So are you working on that also as part of your research or of your center?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I can say a little bit about people, and maybe you do want to as well. Well, I think, as I said before, I think that people are crucial to, I think, the development of genuine innovations and then the take-up and the acceptance of them. I think that smart data and integration done well can have huge benefits for citizens, because it can help to design services that really meet their needs. It can give them opportunity to ask questions, to take control, and to innovate. But it won't happen automatically. So within our Catapult Centre, we will have a program on citizen-led innovation that specifically is looking at how do we involve citizens, community groups, and innovators in some of these big questions and big opportunities.
Yeah. Sterling, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, and I think for us, we take it from very much from an energy efficiency standpoint, because that's what will get cities to be able to afford to make these changes. But actually the changes that are being made just make sense, right? Nobody wants to be walking on a poorly lit street at night. Everybody wants a street that's a lot lighter. Nobody wants to have to run back to the meter or remember, oh my God, my parking meter is about to run out and I just had to pay a ticket. Everybody wants to be able to pay on their mobile phone. So when these applications make sense for the cities and they can make additional money from it or they can save money, you can then turn it around and you can offer better services to citizens on the back of that as well.
I'd just like to add on that. It's important to realize that a lot of the people that live today in urban environments in and around cities don't live with nice big houses in the suburbs with solar panels and high-rise flats with beautiful views over the Thames. They live in slums. And Mumbai, for example, millions of people live in slums around the city. But what's interesting, and there's a lot that has to change about that, obviously, but what's interesting about that is some of these slum areas have become incredibly innovative at things like recycling waste. And we can learn a lot within the more developed cities as to how we can self-organize to do that kind of thing. So there are very big social issues that need to be solved in those areas, but we can also learn a lot from how those areas are working today. And if we can come up with a way to integrate the kind of solutions we're talking about here with the kind of adaptation and resilience of those communities, then I think we got a chance. Question down here.
Yes, Seb Bilo from Web Asset Management. Just a comment really, following the previous remark. In the UK there was a story recently about a community that was the lucky recipient of some LED street lighting. And the story in the paper was obviously trying to play up the controversy, was that the residents were upset because it was preventing them from sleeping at night because it was too bright.
Yep.
And I don't want to undermine, I think the technology is incredibly important, but it really is important to bring people with us on this journey and rather just deliver technology to them. So just sort of emphasize that point again.
Yeah, good point, Seb.
Yeah, but also, a lot of people are conservative inherently, and if we're going to change our cities then and indeed be sustainable, if we rely on what people value and want today, we won't necessarily get there. So somehow there's also going to have to be some leadership and education and pulling and pushing people. Do you get that? Because I think if we only rely on what people will accept today, then they'll say no thanks to a lot.
And as you were mentioning earlier, consumer engagement's a large part of that. One of our customers in the smart grid sector is Oklahoma Gas and Electric. And when you look at they've implemented a smart grid project that's been massively successful. And if you look at their consumer ratings, it's close, I think, Noel was telling me the other day, to Apple or some of those brand labels. And what they've done is engaging consumers, marketing to them ahead of the rollout, explaining to them the benefit of understanding their energy usage, training them on devices in their house, and explaining to them how it could be better. So with LEDs as an example, you can actually remotely control those with a network. So if you can actually go ahead and say, well, you know what, it provides actually a brighter light, so we need a mechanism to remotely control them and reduce that light. Explain to people how they help improve crime in areas. There's an example in Chattanooga where they've implemented smart LEDs, and they've gone from 3 or 4 gang-related incidents in a park a week to almost 0, right? And so explaining to consumers the benefits of implementing better lighting, of the new lighting technology, implementing a network and intelligent software to address some of those concerns, and packaging it up is really what's going to drive the deployment.
Okay, we need to wrap up. The screen's just gone red. I don't know when the electric shocks start, but wrap up very quickly. One final comment from me. It's quite telling how in situations like this, we talk about consumers all the time. And we all do it. And if we can start just mentally trying to replace that word consumer with the word citizen, then I think it will go a long way to delivering the kind of engagement we need. There's someone waving furiously over there. Is that to tell me to get off, or is that because you've got a question? Question, very quickly, and then I think we have to call it a day.
Okay, thank you, Therese Vienne. I happen to be both an architect and in the IT business.
Okay.
And I have worked a little bit for Mazda City and Chongming City in China. And there are also, I think, another initiative of Smart City in Portugal. So the question is, I suppose you know about those initiatives, and it didn't really deploy, although it has started a few years ago. So you have an idea why?
Of why they haven't been deployed elsewhere, you mean?
Right, because Mazda City has been set up because of a strong government power, as same as in China. So it's kind of, it has all the best grounds for deployment.
Okay. 10-second answer, Peter, Sterling?
Well, I think most of the big challenge is not going to be creating those new cities from scratch. It's about retrofitting, taking our existing cities and overlaying on that physical infrastructure a layer of digital intelligence. And I think that's what these guys are doing, and I think that's what the future is. And my last word is, I'm setting up this new innovation center from scratch. I've got some money, I've got some opportunities. What I really want to hear is what you as businesses need from me, what the barriers are. Sorry, this microphone is not working. Do I shout? What the barriers are to innovation? What's stopping you making money from this agenda? And then I can help you do that.
Sterling, final comment?
Yeah, well, I think it actually relates to that, right? Which is, you know, if you look at Mazda City or a lot of these initiatives, they were very much every technology that you can imagine was put into those cities. And some of them had real business needs behind them and some of them didn't. So I think a lot of the technologies that they have implemented have rolled out smart lighting, smart traffic, smart parking. It's just you haven't seen the entire thing roll out, and it's going to be incremental. You have to choose your first applications, you have to choose your payback, and then over time you can layer it in. You're not going to have a complete network across every service in every city tomorrow. It's going to be incremental in how it deploys.